So Mark Douglas Burns, that name.
Yeah, for decades it was almost a ghost, a shadow figure.
A whispered terror in communities, and you might know him by that chilling name, the Clearfield Rapist.
Right. It's a name that unfortunately carries a really disturbing legacy.
We're about to dive into, well, the stark reality of Burns' crimes.
Yeah, a timeline of violence stretching from the 1970s right up to the early 2000s.
Serial rapist, murderer, concentrated around Clearfield, Utah, but not just there.
No, his reach went across multiple state lines. He was incredibly mobile.
And how did he stay hidden for so long? That's really key here, isn't it?
Absolutely. His job as a long-haul truck driver, that was crucial.
It gave him the opportunity, the means to commit these awful acts everywhere.
Exactly. Across different jurisdictions, which makes investigating so much harder. Fragmented cases.
Until 2019.
For the breakthrough. And it wasn't, your typical detective work leading straight to him.
No, it came from cold case units, their dedication.
And this really advanced DNA technology, forensic genealogy specifically, that was the game changer.
Okay, so let's really get into this decades-long nightmare.
Our mission here, is to understand the sheer scope of his crimes.
The investigation, how they finally caught him, those confessions.
And the legal aftermath, of course.
This case, it really does show how much criminal investigation has, evolved.
It really does. And the story starts, disturbingly, way back.
The early years, they're troubling.
Deeply. We know his violent behavior seems to start in the 1970s. There were reports of sexual assaults when he was in Hawaii.
As a U.S. Marine.
Yes, which led to a dishonorable discharge. So, red flags early on.
And then 1974 in North Carolina. That feels like a huge turning point.
It was pivotal. The rape at that restaurant.
That detail about jamming the restroom lock, it's just awful. To trap the victim, Mrs. Williams.
And then being caught again at the same place, with the lock tampered with again, it's brazen.
So he's caught, convicted for a capital crime, gets the death sentence initially.
Right. You'd think, okay, that's the end of his path of violence.
But no, that sentence gets vacated, changed.
Yeah, changed to a 16-year prison sentence. And this decision, it had just devastating consequences down the line.
He gets released in 1990.
And you have to wonder, why was it vacated? Especially with the laws back then.
Burns himself apparently speculated about some kind of deal.
Well, whatever the reason, the result was tragic.
Yeah.
Because the violence didn't stop.
Not at all. Almost immediately after getting out.
June 1991. The Rock Springs rape. It shows zero rehabilitation. Just entrenched predation.
It's that horrible what if, isn't it?
Exactly. If that first death sentence had stood, how many lives ruined could have been prevented?
The consequences of that reversal are just staggering when you lay it all out.
Precisely. So after 1990 through the 90s and early 2000s, it's just this terrifying pattern.
Violent sexual assaults, targeting men, women, children.
Across multiple states, again enabled by his job.
That long-haul truck driving, constant movement, anonymity.
And the locations just pile up. Rock Springs, Wyoming in 91.
Then Utah, Riverdale 92, Ogden 93.
Clearfield 94, 95, then again 2000, 2001.
Laramie, Wyoming in 96. Layton, Utah, 97.
It's a horrifying map of his movements.
And his methods. The M.O., it reveals so much, like binding victims.
Yes, we see taped hands in Rock Springs, blindfolds, tied wrists and feet in Clearfield.
That 2001 home invasion, binding the whole family.
It's about total control. Absolute helplessness for the victim.
Yeah.
Maximum vulnerability.
And weapons were always there, or the threat of them.
A knife in Rock Springs. Threatening to cut someone's throat in Clearfield.
Right.
Pointing a gun at a child.
Just shows the extreme danger.
And the targeting. Often apartment buildings.
Suspected entry through sliding glass doors, mostly.
Though, that Rock Springs case, the open window, chillingly opportunistic.
Some victims recalled the smell of alcohol, too.
These details build a grim picture, don't they?
But the psychological torture, forcing family members to witness assaults.
It's particularly heinous. That May 2001 Clearfield attack. The mother, daughter, husband, brother, all bound.
Assaulting the mother and daughter repeatedly in front of each other.
It's an escalation of cruelty that's hard to comprehend.
You can see why he got the name Clearfield Rapist. So many attacks there.
The concentration was significant.
And that Rock Springs assault, June 91, his own words.
Knew I was going back to prison, so I decided to commit a rape.
The coldness. Targeting a 14-year-old girl. The assault itself. Then just calmly driving back to North Carolina.
It shows such a profound lack of empathy, of basic human decency.
Then the May 2001 Clearfield home invasion. The mask, the gloves.
Waking the couple, forcing the woman to lead him to her daughter, her brother.
Binding everyone, the repeated assaults. Confronting the son who came home.
And then demanding money almost as an afterthought. It's just pure terror.
There's a table in the source material, table 1, that lists these out.
Yeah, and it shows the consistency, the horrifying pattern across years and locations.
But it didn't stop at sexual assault. It escalated.
Tragically, yes. To murder. 2001, Evanston, Wyoming. Sue Ellen Gunderson Higgins.
Killed during an armed robbery at her home.
And her 2-year-old son was there, asleep in the house.
It's just unimaginable.
And then the initial injustice. Her husband was accused first. Arrested.
It just compounds the tragedy, doesn't it? The ripple effects of these crimes are huge.
Burns confessed to this later, after 2019.
He did. And his comment about it, it's chillingly detached.
She did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Totally my bad. Just went too instantly and I chose the wrong way to handle it.
It sounds like he's describing a robbery gone wrong. Not necessarily a planned murder, but still. It's so cold.
But contrast that with the Arizona murder confession, the hitchhiker he thought was posing as a woman.
His justification to the judge, that one had it coming.
It's just utter dehumanization. Zero remorse there. It's staggering.
A complete contrast. The source also mentions a third homicide confession in Oregon. Fewer details on that one.
But after his arrest in 2019, the floodgates opened, didn't they? Yes. Interviews with Clearfield Police, Davis County Sheriff, the FBI, he admitted to, quote, numerous additional violent crimes and murders.
At one point admitting 10 to 12 rapes across 8 states, media reports say at least 3 murders confessed.
It really makes you wonder, what's the full count? How many victims are still unknown?
And again, that wrongful accusation of Sue Ellen Higgins' husband, just a terrible side effect.
Table 2 in the source material summarizes the known homicides, the ones he admitted to or was convicted of.
So for years, all these assaults, they were cold cases.
Right. They had DNA collected between 94 and 2001 from several scenes, but no suspect to match it to. Nothing in the databases yet.
Until around 2010.
Yeah, that's when things started to change. DNA tech got better, Cody's became more effective.
And they could finally link the DNA from Rock Springs, Ogden, Laramie, Layton, Clearfield.
All to one unknown person. That's when they filed those John Doe charges. A placeholder, essentially.
Which led to the multi-agency task force in 2015.
Crucial step. Clearfield, Layton, Ogden in Utah, Laramie, Rock Springs in Wyoming. The county attorney, state crime lab, all working together.
Collaboration was key.
Absolutely essential. And then comes forensic genealogy, Dr. Barbara Raventer's work.
Using public DNA databases, like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe.
Essentially, yes. Using those databases to find distant relatives through DNA matches, then building family trees to zero in on potential suspects.
And that pointed them towards Mark Douglas Burns.
It did. It gave them a name, a target.
Then the classic police work. Covertly getting his DNA.
From his garbage, yeah. Standard procedure once they have a strong lead like that.
And it matched the crime scene DNA.
That must have been an incredible moment for those investigators after so many years.
His arrest, September 25th, 2019, finally.
And then, as we said, the confessions started pouring out.
This case really is a testament to just keeping evidence safe for decades.
Preservation, yeah. And the revolutionary power of forensic genealogy. It's solving cases once thought impossible.
Huge credit to cold case units. Their persistence is amazing.
It truly is. Though, the use of public genetic databases for law enforcement, there are ethical discussions around that too.
Right. The source mentions that briefly, privacy concerns and all that.
Important considerations. But in this case, it was the key. That and the massive collaborative effort.
So after the arrest, the legal side kicks in. Multiple states involved.
In Utah, Davis County, charges for the 2000 and 2001 Clearfield attacks.
And he pleaded guilty, surprisingly maybe.
To 17 felonies, aggravated sexual assault, kidnapping, burglary, robbery, a whole raft of charges.
Well, probably not everything he did in Utah because of the statute of limitations.
Likely, yes. Some suspected cases couldn't be charged after so much time had passed.
His Utah sentence came in April 2020.
At least 242 years to life. Essentially life without parole.
Then Wyoming had their charges too.
For the 91 Rock Springs rape. Guilty plea again, 7 felonies.
And another life sentence for that.
Served consecutively. So after the Utah sentence, if you ever finished it.
And the conviction for Sue Ellen Gunderson Higgins' murder in Evanston.
Life without parole for that as well.
So adding it all up, It's nearly 500 years.
Yeah, as the prosecutor said, the expectation is he'll die in the Utah State Prison. There's no getting out.
His courtroom demeanor seemed inconsistent.
Very. In Utah, over video, he apologized, said pleading guilty was all he could do for the victims.
But in Wyoming, for the Rock Springs case, he asked for no mercy.
Yeah, a really stark difference. Makes you wonder what was going on in his head.
Why plead guilty? Why ask for no mercy? Is it control? Expediency? Some psychological need?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe a bit of all those things. A desire to control the final narrative, perhaps.
And it's frustrating, isn't it, that the statute of limitations means some victims might never see specific charges for what happened to them.
It is. It means the legal record might be incomplete, even if investigators suspect more. Table 3 in the material summarizes the final convictions and sentences.
After he was caught, Burns said some really revealing things.
Yeah, insights into his mindset, or at least what he wanted people to believe his mindset was.
Talking about wanting to give victims closure.
And that strange wish for the death penalty in the murder cases, calling it the only thing he has left to give his victims.
Saying he'd rather be executed than spend the rest of my life in prison.
And the claim about new emotions? This is really striking.
Feeling guilt, regret, remorse, sorrow. Feelings he said he'd never experienced before.
Which sort of aligns with that Utah apology.
He also claimed he stopped offending after 2002.
Said the desire to fulfill his sick needs started to fade.
But how genuine is that late remorse? You have to be skeptical.
Extremely skeptical. Is it manipulation? A coping mechanism? Or maybe, possibly, some kind of genuine, very delayed reckoning?
Especially when you put it next to the "that one had it coming" comment about the Arizona murder. No remorse there at all.
Exactly. The contradiction is glaring.
And his attempts to explain himself.
Yeah.
Medically.
Yeah. This is self-diagnosis attempts. Chemical imbalance, XY chromosome, a loose wire.
Sounds like trying to shift blame, doesn't it? Away from personal responsibility.
Suggests an effort to say, it wasn't really me, it was my faulty wiring. And that quote, I think I'm basically a decent human being if it wasn't for the fact I was also a monster.
Textbook cognitive dissonance. Trying to hold two completely incompatible ideas about himself at the same time.
A common psychological defense, the source says?
Very. He also mentioned feeling relief after being caught. A great weight lifted off of me.
Maybe relief from the burden of secrecy or the fear of capture.
Could be. But that claim about stopping in 2002, investigators aren't necessarily buying it.
Right. They suspect there could be other victims we don't know about. Caution is definitely needed with anything he said.
Absolutely. His history demands skepticism.
And the impact.
Yeah.
The scars left on the victims, their families, it's just immense.
The brutality, the psychological torment. It's hard to even talk about without feeling the weight of it.
Victimizing children, like the 14-year-old in Rock Springs. Adults, sometimes in front of their own families. That act of forcing family members to witness. The 2001 Clearfield case again. Just exceptionally cruel. Compounded trauma.
The victim impact statement from the Rock Springs survivor mentioned in the source.
Powerful. Highlighting how these crimes echo through generations. It's not just one person affected. It's entire families, communities, for years.
Did the guilty pleas help the victims at all?
In one specific way, yes.
Yeah.
It meant they didn't have to go through the trauma of testifying at a trial. That's a significant relief for many survivors.
And the communities he terrorized, especially Clearfield. There must have been a huge sense of relief when he was finally caught.
Definitely. A sense of justice, finally, and maybe a lessening of that pervasive fear that lingers when cases go cold for so long.
And for the investigators who worked these cases for years, some now retired.
Imagine the satisfaction. That quote from Detective Lynette Griffith in Rock Springs, feeling redemption. It really speaks to their dedication.
This case leaves a legacy, doesn't it? Especially in forensics.
Huge legacy. Forensic genealogy, advanced DNA. It shows what's possible now in solving cold cases. This will be studied for a long time.
It'll likely influence policy and practice.
No doubt. But even with legal closure.
The healing for survivors, that's a whole different journey.
Long personal journey. And Burns' idea of giving closure, that might not match their reality at all.
So we've walked through this really dark story. Mark Douglas Burns.
Decades of violence, elusiveness, finally ended by persistence and science.
His confessions, the convictions, they brought safety, some measure of justice.
But that question still hangs there, doesn't it?
The full extent. Did he confess to everything? Are there others?
His own words and investigators' beliefs suggest maybe not.
It's just such a stark reminder of the devastation serial predators
And
cause.
the vital importance of cold case work, of pushing forensic science forward.
Which leaves you, the listener, with this thought.
Considering the immense suffering and the tech that finally brought justice here.
What are our ongoing responsibilities, society, law enforcement?
To tackle these old, unsolved crimes. To support survivors better.
It's that complex balance, isn't it? Justice, privacy, and that relentless need to find the truth, no matter how disturbing.